All right, this is the first. What I'm going to do today is something a little different. This flower is here in honor of the new thing that I'm going to do today. What I'm going to do today is a new segment called Ask PB. And I'm going to do it every week from now on. Every week on Monday, I will record the episode for Tuesday morning's Ask PB. So every Tuesday morning when you wake up, there'll be an Ask PB. And I made an announcement a while ago that I was going to do this, and a number of people posed some questions to me for that episode, and that was about a year ago. I never got to it. So I used those questions in today's episode. But if you have a question that you would like me to answer in Ask PB, here's what I would like you to do. Number one, subscribe to my channel. Number two, like the video for this week's Ask PB. And number three, leave your question as a comment on YouTube in the under the video. Leave your question there. So like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a question below, and I will do my best to get to it next week, depending on how many questions there are. I'm going to answer as many of them as I possibly can. All right, I hope you like my first ever Ask PB segment. Here we go. So let's just start off with a couple of these questions right off the bat. First question, as a man, is it hard for you to relate to the metaphor of being the bride of Christ? My answer to that question is no. It is not difficult for me to relate to the metaphor of being the bride of Christ, because the biblical metaphor of the bride of Christ is always applied corporately to the church rather than individually to the believer. Those components, the attributes of the bride of Christ, can be applied to the individual. And so when I think of the church as the bride of Christ, and I think of the intimacy that the church shares with Christ, I can apply that to myself, and it also speaks of the intimacy that I share with Christ. But I don't have to imagine myself as a bride wearing a gown, a wedding gown, and that can get really, really weird and really, really strange. This is a question about dating. Continue to talk to your ex, but unsure if you want to marry him, but have strong feeling for him. He wants to get married and have kids ASAP, but you want to date. So if I gather from what I'm reading here, whoever, and this is an anonymous question, basically your ex, not sure if it's your ex-husband or ex-boyfriend, but you continue to talk to him, which means you continue to stay connected to him, you continue to have strong feelings for him. So it sounds like there's a disagreement on the timeline as far as how quickly your relationship will move forward, rather than a disagreement as to whether or not your relationship will move forward. So what I would say is the two of you simply need to sit down and talk these things out until you come to an agreement. There's nothing that is more powerful in a married relationship or a relationship that is moving towards marriage than agreement. And there is no substitute for it. There's nothing, it's funny. Sonny and I, we got in an argument one time, and we talked and talked and talked, and we could not come to an agreement. And finally we called our pastor and we said, look, we called him together. We put him on speakerphone. We said, look, here's the situation. She thinks we should do this. I think we should do this. But we decided we're going to submit this to you. And whatever you say, that's what we're going to do. And he laughed and said, it would be real easy if it worked that way, wouldn't it? And he said, no, that's not how it works. The two of you need to sit and talk until you agree. The function of my relationship with you and my word in your life is not to substitute your agreement, but to substantiate it or to affirm it. And so, it sounds like the two of you just need to sit and talk and share your feelings openly with one another and discuss the matter until you come to an agreement as far as the time frame for moving your relationship forward, getting married, having kids. I think we can all agree that masturbation by oneself or without a spouse involved is sin. However, is mutual masturbation, both people doing it together, a sin in marriage? That's an excellent question. The answer to that question is very simple. No, it is not a sin in marriage. When a husband and wife come together to pleasure one another, it's mutual, it's satisfying, and it is clean. It is not unclean, and it is not a sin. Why did Jacob steal Esau's birthright? Because he wanted it. Just brush it. It's like all over the place. You look like a homeless child. So what was the problem with Job's friends? Job's friends were called accusers because they accused him. Job's friends, yes, they had many great things to say, a lot of wonderful things to say, actually. There's a lot of wisdom in what Job's friends said. But throughout these wise sayings, there were accusations that they leveled against Job that were just not true. And I think if there's any counsel we can learn from the book of Job, it's don't assume that just because someone's going through a hardship that they've sinned against God. That is so important. Don't assume that hardship is the sign that you or someone else has displeased the Lord. Sometimes hardship is a sign that you're going through a hardship. Very dear friend of mine, I hate to put him on blast like this, but this is a good example. I had my hardship over the summer where I ended up in the emergency room, and I was there. I was hospitalized for 4 days, and I had vertigo for a month or so. And I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, hey, I'm going to be doing comedy at Tommy T's on such and such a night. And he said, what? You're still doing that? I said, yeah, of course I'm doing that. He said, even after the vertigo thing? I said, what's that got to do with anything? He said, man, when I heard you went to the hospital, I thought God doesn't want PB doing comedy. And I said, really? Really? Is that what you think this is? That the fact that I got sick is a sign that God is displeased with me doing comedy? You know, like he's going to smite me with sickness because he doesn't want me to do comedy? Wouldn't it be easy for him to just tell me that he doesn't want me to do comedy instead of smiting me with sickness and nearly killing me? No, that way of thinking is very religious, honestly. It's every time there's a trial, it must be a sign that God is not pleased. And that's the error of Job's friends. And if we want to learn a lesson from Job's friends, we learn not to make that assumption. All right, I think we got time for one more. Let's see. We might have time for one more. Oh, here's a good one. What's allowed and not allowed on a first date? What would you suggest as an appropriate date night for any young couple today? All right, what is allowed and what is not allowed on a first date? First of all, on a first date, you should not be thinking about any type of intimate interaction with one another. You shouldn't be thinking about kissing or holding hands or cuddling or grinding or, you shouldn't be thinking about that stuff because a first date, you're just getting to know this person. You're just trying to figure out, really on a first date, the whole goal of the first date is to try to have a good time and try to answer the question, do I want to go on another one of these? And so think of something that's fun, but allows enough interaction with one another. You don't want to just go to a movie and look at a screen together for 2 hours. You don't want to go to an amusement park and just ride rides together. You want to go sit down someplace where you can talk and try to get to know each other and see if there's any chemistry with one another and ask one another questions about one another's lives. The whole point of it is to get to know one another, not to try to see how far you can go in terms of bases. So, yeah, that's good. That's important. All right, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Benjamin's Vlog, and hope you have a great week. Talk to you soon.